Good evening. You are watching DarkTrace Network. I am Daniel Carter. What you are about to experience is not a summary of history. It is a deep reconstruction of decades of decisions, crises, alliances, and contradictions between two nations that never fully understood each other, yet never stopped engaging with each other. Pakistan and the United States. A relationship built in the language of strategy. Not sentiment, not culture, but necessity. 1947 The birth of a fragile state. In 1947, British colonial rule in South Asia comes to an end. The subcontinent is divided into two independent states, India and Pakistan. Pakistan is born under extraordinary pressure, mass migration, communal violence, administrative vacuum, and a military security environment that is already unstable from day one. The new state inherits almost nothing in terms of institutional strength. Its leadership faces an immediate question. How does a weak state survive in a hostile and uncertain region? At the same time, the world is entering a new global structure. The Second World War has ended. Empires are collapsing. And a new geopolitical order is forming. The Cold War. A global ideological conflict between capitalism and communism. And in this new system, every region becomes strategically important. South Asia is no exception. Early Cold War reality. Pakistan enters global strategy in Washington. Policymakers begin analyzing global regions not just by geography, but by strategic value. Pakistan's location makes it significant. Close to the Middle East. Adjacent to the Soviet Union's southern borders, near emerging energy corridors, and positioned between major global powers. In the early 1950s, diplomatic relations begin to form. But they are not based on equality. They are based on interest. Economic aid begins flowing into Pakistan. Military cooperation expands. Training programs are initiated. And soon Pakistan becomes part of Western-aligned defense systems like SEATO and CENTO. But there is a fundamental mismatch in perception. Pakistan sees a partnership for development. The United States sees a partnership for containment. This mismatch will repeatedly resurface across decades. 1950s, early 1960s, strategic cooperation expands. During this period, relations deepen. American military advisors are stationed in Pakistan. Economic assistance programs expand infrastructure development. Pakistan aligns itself with Western security structures. For the United States, Pakistan becomes a forward post in Asia. For Pakistan, it becomes a source of economic and military support. But beneath this cooperation lies an unspoken truth. The relationship is conditional, not permanent. 1965 War. The reality of limited support. In 1965, war breaks out between Pakistan and India, a major conflict that draws global attention. Pakistan expects strong diplomatic backing from Western allies. But the response is restrained. Neutral statements, limited intervention, no decisive support. This moment becomes psychologically significant in Pakistan's foreign policy thinking, because it reveals a core reality. Strategic partners do not always translate into wartime allies. Trust begins to erode, not completely, but significantly. Late 1960s to 1971, political shifts and regional crisis. As the 1960s progress, internal and external pressures grow. Political instability increases within Pakistan. Regional tensions intensify, and global Cold War dynamics continue shifting. Then comes 1971. A civil conflict in East Pakistan escalates into a full-scale war. The result is the creation of Bangladesh. For Pakistan, it is one of the most traumatic events in its history. A national rupture. A political and emotional collapse of unity. For the United States, the situation is interpreted through Cold War alignment strategies and regional power balance considerations. But the impact on bilateral trust is severe. Even if relations continue formally, the emotional and strategic confidence weakens further. 1970s. A period of strategic silence. After 1971, relations enter a quieter phase. There is no major alliance activity, no major crisis cooperation, thus diplomatic maintenance. Pakistan focuses on rebuilding and redefining its internal structure. The United States shifts attention toward other global theaters. Europe, Middle East, East Asia. The relationship becomes low intensity, functional but distant. 1979 Afghanistan War and strategic rebirth. In 1979, a global shock changes everything. The Soviet Union invades Afghanistan. This event reshapes global security architecture overnight. Suddenly, Pakistan becomes one of the most strategically important countries in the world. Because geography becomes decisive. The United States needs regional access, logistics, intelligence, ground cooperation, and Pakistan becomes the central hub. What follows is a massive expansion of cooperation. Military assistance increases significantly. Intelligence networks are built, training camps operate. Aid flows at unprecedented levels. Pakistan becomes the operational backbone of the Afghan resistance movement supported by the West. For nearly a decade, the relationship reaches its highest level of strategic alignment. But again, this alignment is not built on trust. It is built on necessity. 1989 to 1991, the collapse of strategic need. When the Soviet Union begins collapsing in 1989 and formally dissolves in 1991, the global structure changes completely. The Cold War ends, and with it, the urgency that defined Pakistan's importance disappears. Almost immediately, the relationship cools. Military aid declines. Political engagement weakens. Economic assistance reduces. Pakistan begins to perceive a familiar pattern. Strategic usefulness creates engagement. Strategic irrelevance creates distance. This perception becomes deeply rooted in policy thinking. 1990s, sanctions, distance, and nuclear pressure. The 1990s become one of the most difficult decades in bilateral relations. Nuclear developments in South Asia trigger international concern. The United States imposes sanctions under various policy frameworks. Military cooperation is suspended. Aid is restricted. Diplomatic engagement continues, but without warmth. Pakistan, meanwhile, faces internal political instability and economic challenges. The relationship becomes formal but emotionally detached. A structured interaction without strategic intensity. 2001, the global shock returns cooperation. On September 11, 2001, global history changes again. The United States is attacked. And the war on terror begins. Once again, Pakistan becomes strategically essential. Its geography places it at the center of Afghanistan operations. Cooperation resumes rapidly. Airspace access, logistics routes, intelligence sharing, military coordination, financial assistance. The relationship is revived almost overnight. But this time, conditions are more complex. Because now, the region is more volatile, and public opinion plays a much larger role. 2001 to 2010's cooperation under pressure. During this era, both cooperation and tension exist simultaneously. Pakistan assists in counter-terrorism operations. The United States provides military and economic support. But distrust remains present beneath the surface. Drone operations create internal political backlash. Sovereignty concerns grow. Security challenges increase within Pakistan. In Washington, questions arise about operational effectiveness and reliability. The relationship becomes multi-layered. Cooperation at the strategic level, tension at the political level, and skepticism at the public level. 2010s, strategic fatigue and reassessment. As the Afghanistan conflict continues over decades, both countries begin reassessing priorities. The United States gradually shifts toward Asia-Pacific strategy and global power competition. Pakistan continues dealing with internal security issues and economic pressures. Engagement becomes cautious. Selective, less emotionally driven, more transactional. Modern era, multipolar reality. In today's world, the relationship exists within a new global structure. China's rising influence reshapes regional alignment. U.S. China competition affects South Asia. Afghanistan remains unstable. Trade continues. Diplomacy continues. Security coordination continues. But strategic clarity has become more complex than ever. The relationship is no longer defined by one axis of cooperation. It is defined by multiple overlapping interests. Final reflection: the nature of the relationship. So what is Pakistan-United States relations today? It is not alliance in the traditional sense. It is not opposition in absolute terms. It is a strategic engagement shaped by decades of history. Sometimes aligned. Sometimes divided. Always interconnected, because geography does not change, but interests constantly evolve. History does not repeat itself exactly. But in international relations, patterns often return in new forms. I am Daniel Carter, and this is DarkTrace Network.